All right, so here we are in our last step, which is to organize everything. Now, before we start organizing, there's one more thing we need to create in here. One more controller, which is the generic name of which is the root controller. So the root controller is basically that controller that sits right here at the bottom, if you will, that allows us to translate, rotate, and scale the entire rig up and down. So let's start out by simply creating a circle. It's the general name of it is root controller, but the precise name here is going to be max control because it's pretty much controlling uh, our entire max rig. So if you were rigging Superman, this would be called Superman underscore control, if you will. So let me go ahead and freeze transformations and delete history on it. Okay. One of the things that I'm going to be doing with this is to introduce an attribute called as global scale. So let me tell you what this means. If I was to translate this entire rig, then ideally the animator would be selecting your max control, translating it, and the whole rig will go with it. Rotating your max control will rotate the entire rig. Scaling it will scale the entire rig as well. Now, in very few cases do I want this particular rig to scale differently in X, Y, and Z. I pretty much want it to scale uniformly in all the three attributes. Okay, so if the rig was to make twice as big, then my animator has to go 2, 2, 2. That's 3 attributes that my animator has to plant, which seems like a lot of work. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, instead of having those 3 attributes there, I'm going to make one custom attribute, and I'm going to connect all these 3 scale attributes to that custom attribute. Okay, so let's start out by creating a custom attribute. Edit, add attribute, and I'm going to call this attribute global scale. Global scale needs to be one word with a capital S. That is exactly how I want you to type that in. Remember, this is eventually going to be a scale attribute, which means the default value needs to be 1. Scale value of 0 means that my rig is going to shrink completely. So let's say OK. And right now my global scale is just an attribute. It's doing nothing. I want that to control this, this, and this. And how do I want it to control it? I basically want Maya to copy that value and paste it here, here, here. If I punch in a 2 here, Maya should copy that and paste it here, 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 like this. If I plant a 1, Maya should copy that into this, this, and this. So when I think of copy pasting, the relationship that comes to mind is the connection editor. So let's deselect and open up the connection editor. Select my max control, load that in the left, load that in the right as well. Okay, and I'm going to say that the global scale of this particular object is going to control scale X. Look for scale, they're right here. Scale X, scale Y, scale Z, and that way all the 3 scales are now being connected to my global scale. Okay, so if I change that value to 2, you see all the scales will change in their value automatically, which is fantastic. And I know that this is not scaling the rig yet, and that's because I'm not done organizing it. So let's go ahead and organize it. Okay, I'm going to take my geo group and just parent it underneath of my max control. Okay, I'm going to select my pelvis control, group it, and let's call it control group. Parent that into my max control as well. Select my pelvis joint, group it, let's call it joint group. Parent that underneath the max controller. By the way, the way I'm parenting it is selecting the child, middle clicking, dragging, and dropping it into the parent. Okay, so you see what I have is I've got one node, which is my max control, which is a super parent of everything. I've got my geo segregated in this group called as geo group. Controllers are segregated in this group called as control group. joints are sitting here in my joint group. So tomorrow when I say I want you to hide the joints, just select the group, hide it. As simple as that. We don't want that just as yet, so let's keep that on. Now I can select my root controller, I can translate the entire rig, I can rotate, and I can also scale it using global scale. That, let me save that file, is the end of the spine setup.